Would you please tell me, just so we have it on tape, your full name?
Carol Steinkamp-Ziants,
And how long have you lived in New Orleans, Carol?
56 years, all my life.
And so your family is from New Orleans as well?
Yes.
And what part are you from in New Orleans?
New Orleans East is where I was raised.
And where do you live now?
I live in Gentilly.
And how long have you lived in Gentilly?
Going on 5 years now.
And so were you in New Orleans East before Katrina?
No.
No. Where did you live before Katrina?
Before Katrina, well, yes, I was. Part of my life was in New Orleans East.
So kind of tell me the trajectory of...
Yeah, then I moved to Metairie. When Katrina hit, I was in Metairie. I was living in an apartment on the second floor, which was the top floor of this particular complex. And I lost everything in Katrina. And in Metairie, the roof blew off and the ceiling caved in. So it was rare for someone to lose everything in Metairie, but I did. And so that's where I was when Katrina hit. And then I went to Baton Rouge because my law firm and charity that I run moved to Baton Rouge and stayed there for a few months. Then we moved back here. We were able to move the offices back here in downtown New Orleans. And I moved back into the same complex, but in a different apartment because my apartment was, like I said, destroyed. And but I was able to move back to the complex.
How long was it before you were able to move back?
It's just a matter of a few months.
So when you moved back, where did you end up living?
When I moved back, the same apartment complex in Metairie.
In Metairie,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And so what were your initial perceptions once you were back? That wasn't too long after Katrina. How
Right.
much of the city was repopulated? How much were you able to do? What about family and friends?
We went back to work. We were able to go back to work. Like I said, our offices were, opened again in downtown New Orleans, so we were able to go back to work. Work was slow, but it snowballed back right, where it was. My mother and my sister, who were still living in the house that I grew up in New Orleans East, eventually evacuated for Katrina to Houston. My mother was special needs in a wheelchair, and she ended up at the Superdome, which was horrible. And so they bused them to, she wasn't going to evacuate at all because, rode out a few hurricanes in the house and she was safe. So she felt safe there, but when the mayor said mandatory evacuation, get out, they ended up at the Superdome, my mother and my sister. So they bused them from the Superdome to the Astrodome in Houston, where they were for days. My sister had no idea what was going on in New Orleans. She was texting me, asking me to go check on their dog. I said, do you even know what's going on? She says, no, what? I said, nobody can get back into New Orleans. Because where she was in the Astrodome, there were no televisions. She didn't have access to a radio. She didn't have an iPhone. She borrowed somebody's phone to text me. And I had no idea where they were, what was happening. They had no idea where I was, what was happening. When they were in the Astrodome, my mother was they had her in a cot in the special needs section. And it was just hell. There was a nurse there that worked at a nursing home, saw my mother and another elderly gentleman, and this nurse urged her superior at the nursing home to please take my mother in and this other man in because they're not going to make it if they stay in the Astrodome. Well, the supervisor at the nursing home says, no, if I take these people in, I'm going to have to take everybody in. Well, the elderly gentleman passed away. So the nurse urged the supervisor, you have to take this lady in, she's not going to make it. So they took my mother into the nursing home, thank God. And then my sister was able to concentrate on herself And she actually found a little apartment in Houston, and she's still there. My mother ended up passing away. She passed away a few years later, but my sister's still in Houston. So.
Now, did your mom come back here to New Orleans? She stayed in Houston.
She stayed in Houston.
So,
In that same nursing home. That's where she passed away.
So you came back here and you started work again.
Yes.
Did you want to stay here?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, this is my home. You know.
People ask, okay, so what is it like now? What is New Orleans like now compared to pre-Katrina? Is it the same? What is your perception? Is it different?
It's different in a way. You still drive through neighborhoods and see destruction, and you know, it left a little scar in my heart. You know, that I think will always be there because of what I went through. I mean, I can see parts of the city, certain things improving, which is great.
What do you see improving?
I see like the streetcar lines being laid down on St. Claude Avenue, and you know, just things like that. Just little things like that, and you know, the people trying to rebuild their homes still. New neighborhoods coming up, or like the ninth Ward being rebuilt in parts, the Musicians Village, and you know, places like that.
And have you experienced anything really different in your life post Katrina?
Well, my mom's gone.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
That's a big thing. My sister, you know, I haven't seen my sister but a few times in 10 years. She's homesick. She wants to come back.
Now, did she found a job in
Yes,
Houston?
yes.
Could she find a job here? Has she tried?
She hasn't tried. She's older. She's going on 70 years old. So she's, you know, the likelihood of her finding a job here is kind of, you know, thin. And like I said, she's got the job in Houston right now. And I can hear it in her voice. She's homesick. She's not happy. But she's doing what she's got to do. You know, so.
And so what is your life? I mean, what do you do? What is it that makes you want to be here in New Orleans?
Well, I have, you know, my roots are here. You know, New Orleans is a part of me. I mean, I'm bred, born, and raised here. The food, the music, the neighborhoods, not the summers. The summers are kind of rough, and I can't, you know, it was funny because I try and get out there in the heat sometimes and do something in the middle of summer, and it's so hot. I mean, it just takes your breath away. And as a kid, I was out in it every day, all day. You know, playing ball, running track, you know, riding my bike, and you know, but the summers here are brutal.
So I met you the other night at Kevin and Tiffany's community dinner.
Right.
Could you tell us a little bit about that community dinner?
Oh, it's fun. It's something that I'm so glad that we're doing. You know, everybody just kind of brings a dish, or you might volunteer. If you don't bring a dish or a bottle of wine, you volunteer to do dishes, or you know, just help pick up. And it's just everybody getting to know everybody. People from the neighborhood, people that aren't from the neighborhood, people that are friends of people in the neighborhood. You know, and then you just kind of you get to know these people, and I've met so many people through the community dinners, you know, in my neighborhood, and it's just been great. So.
How long have you been going to the community dinner there?
I want to say maybe a year and a half.
And can you tell me when it happens?
when it first began.
When it first began, and like how frequent is it?
Well, it's every Tuesday, unless it's Mardi Gras, or or if there's something, or if they're out of town or something comes up, then of course they don't have it. But I don't know how long they've been having it. It was just kind of word of mouth. That my boyfriend has known Kevin for about 20 years, and and when we were looking at the house to buy the house in the neighborhood, we passed Kevin and Tiff's, and they were outside, so we went over there and said, hey, we just looked at a house over here, and we ultimately bought the house. And so I'm not sure when they started the dinners. We kind of, like I said, heard about it through word of mouth, through some other friends and neighbors, and they said, hey, come on over to the Tuesday night dinner. And so we did, and started going almost every Tuesday.
Tell me a little bit more about your work. You work for a law office.
I work for I work for a man that's a lawyer. He used to be a state senator for about 25 years. He was a state senator. He's a pretty prominent lawyer here in town, and he also runs a charity, which actually I run the charity. He's president of, and he has a disabled daughter. And we're a provider service for disabled people. We provide personal care attendants and things like that. And we're funded by the state. So I bill the state, and we get money back to keep the charity going, and donations as well.
So right after Katrina and then up through now, did you have way more people needing help? Or I'm thinking right after Katrina, given the type of work that this law office does,
right.
What did you experience then?
I wasn't after Katrina, I was not in the position that I'm in now with the charity. I was just doing some accounting and bookkeeping for them. I wasn't running it the way I am now. So it's kind of hard for me to answer that. They did have a lot more consumers, which is what we call the disabled people consumers. We did have a lot more, after Katrina, but because of something that happened within the company, there was an embezzler. The company had to just, size down to almost nothing. So that's a whole nother story. The embezzling was that's a whole nother story. But I mean, yeah, there were a lot of people after Katrina that needed help, whether you were disabled or not. A lot of people went through a lot of stuff mentally. But people were there for people. Everybody was there for everybody. Is what I could see.
So tell me about the composition of your neighborhood, because I used to live in that.
Yeah.
I used to live in Gentilly.
Oh yeah.
And I'm kind of curious, what it's like now. Who lives in Gentilly now? Describe the people for me.
Well, it's mixed. The people are mixed there, and it's just a great old neighborhood. I mean, it's a wonderful, cool old neighborhood. The houses, the architect, the gardens, the terraces, the trees. I mean, everything about it. It's just wonderful. I mean, like I said, I've lived in Metairie, and I've lived in New Orleans, and Metarie's just kind of cookie cutter, and it just doesn't have the personality. The neighborhoods just do not have the personality that New Orleans neighborhoods have.
That's something that we haven't really talked about with anybody. Can you describe for folks who are not from here what is meant by New Orleans neighborhoods?
Yeah.
Because there's uptown and there's mid-city.
Sure.
If you would just talk a little bit about the different neighborhoods, that'd be really helpful.
Good question. Well, like I said, the architect for the houses, it's just unique. Some of it has Caribbean kind of feel to it. and the colors, and some of it has a California kind of feel to it. The houses, I mean, some of the houses, I forget the kind of architect it's called. It's not Art Deco, but it's something where some architects from California came here, particularly in Gentilly, and started building craft houses. That's what it's called.
The arts and crafts.
That's it, the craft houses, and you see quite a few of those in Gentilly. And I don't know, just the neighborhoods, the different neighborhoods have, just a kind of a community, a homey, good feel to them. And well, not to mention the food. There's great food everywhere in New Orleans.
So what is some of your favorite food? And do you cook it or do you go out for it?
I do cook, but mostly go out. Red beans and rice. Can't beat that. Boiled crabs. That's just ultimately one of my favorites. Boiled crawfish, shrimp, crab cakes, jambalaya. I mean, just on and on.
These guys had boiled, well, I did too, I was with them. Boiled shrimp and crawfish the other night at Blue Crab.
Blue Crab's great. Yep, I'm so glad to see that the lakefront is coming back, because that was just demolished at Katrina.
How long did it take the lakefront to come back?
A long time. It's still coming back. I mean, it's still coming back. And that does not have the same feel as it did before Katrina. I mean, all the little restaurants like Bruning's and all those little places were so cool, and they're all gone. And I really miss that. Those places on the lakefront that you could just go eat and sit out over the water, and I mean, it was just beautiful. And there was so many places. Now there's just a couple of them, and they're always so crowded because everybody wants to go back to the lakefront. So, but the lakefront is improving. There, the seawall and the Mardi Gras fountain came back, which is huge to me because I used to go to the Mardi Gras fountain as a kid, and that's back.
Describe the Mardi Gras fountain for folks.
The Mardi Gras fountain is a fountain that has the colors of Mardi Gras. The water spurts up in the gold and the green and the colors of Mardi Gras, and then it has all around the fountain. It has like the different representations, like posters of all the crews, years and years and years old crews like Rex and Comus, and it's just a cool place. The purple, green, and gold water, spewing up, and it's just interesting. It's really cool. I was so glad to see that come back.
So in terms of the population in your neighborhood in Gentilly, if you had to guess at it, are most houses on the blocks rebuilt, or 20%, 50%, 70%?
I'm closer up to Gentilly Boulevard, which is on a ridge, and the houses closer up to Gentilly Boulevard are mostly back. But the houses further down towards the lakefront, you will see some of them have not come back because that's where a lot of the water came in. But like I said, the houses closer up to the ridge, to Gentilly Boulevard, were okay. At least that's what I was told, because I didn't experience it. I bought the house after Katrina. So that's what they told me.
What have you heard about property values? We've been hearing that they've gone up since Katrina, which is kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Okay, New Orleans flooded and lots of properties were messed up. But so what have you heard along those lines?
I think in some places they're just crazy, skyrocketed crazy, but in some places, like in my neighborhood in Gentilly, I mean, you can get so much house for not as much money. Say uptown, it's just ridiculously expensive uptown along St. Charles Avenue and in those neighborhoods, but in Gentilly, I think you get a lot more house, for your money.
And are you seeing a lot of people who are not New Orleans natives in your neighborhood? Or are you seeing mostly people who are from this area?
Both. A lot of my neighbors are locals, natives, and I have some that are from out of town and have found jobs here and settled here, and they love it. They love it. So we adopt them. We take them in, and after they're here so many years, we're like, okay, you're New Orleans now. It just gets in you, The food, the music. I've been other places, Boston and New York, visiting, of course, not living there. And God, New Orleans is just such a small town compared to Boston and New York. And, it's just such a different feel. And I love Boston and New York. I love it. But when I come back home, it's just like, it's so nice to be back home. The traffic isn't as bad. And, it's just, if I want to go to Frenchman Street one night and go listen to music, just go right down the street, park, head on over to Frenchman Street and in and out DBA and Spotted Cat, and it's just easy here, big easy.
So we've talked with lots of folks, lots of different interviews, and some of the undercurrents we're hearing have to do with racism still being a big issue in New Orleans. Do you experience that, or know people who are experiencing that?
Yeah. You hear about Ferguson and all that, and it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it. When I hear people say something racist, it just totally makes me uncomfortable. And sometimes I'll speak up and say something. Sometimes I'll just probably make a look, and that's basically all I need to do is just give them the look. And I think it's something that with 2015 we should be way over that. And I just think people are. It's sad. It's sad.
So you said your community's mixed. So in terms of people of color in your community, could you come up with a percentage? Is it 20%, 40%, 60%?
I want to say it's probably half.
It's about half?
Yeah.
That's my memory, Gentile.
Yeah.
Actually, it's always been kind of half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people that live across the street from me, they're an older black couple, and they moved there, I believe he said in 1971, and he said they were the first black family on our block. And since then the kids have grown up and moved away, but the parents are still there. So I believe he said that was like early 1970s. So I guess since then, it's become mixed, which is awesome. It's great. I have no problem with that. But I was raised that way. My mom and my dad were, my dad's best friend was a black man, and I adored him. And so, I think it has to do with the way you're raised.
So,
is that overpowering her at all?
I think we might be getting drowned.
It's a tiny bit. It's just.
See, that's what I'm saying. The music.
Yeah. I still understand it. That's okay.
I can still understand her. It's fine. But he's gonna be in the background no matter what.
That's fine. I don't care if we hear.
Do you want me to talk louder?
No, I can. No, it's not. I would say it's about if her voice is at
Oops, I'm sorry.
let's say it's 60-40.
You're also hearing the audio compared to what's goes
Right.
on noise isolating, so you're hearing that plus.
Yeah, I could be just completely. I can still hear her. I'm
Let's just
still.
keep going. That's
All
not
right.
much we can do about it.
Okay.
So we don't have too much longer anyway. One of the questions I ask people is what they want people who are not from New Orleans to know about New Orleans. Are there things in particular you want people to know?
Oh God. That's it's just a unique place. I know every city has its own uniqueness, but New Orleans is really unique. It's just it's almost a world in itself. Laid back, easygoing, you know, great art, music, food, kind of got it all here.
Along with the heat in the summer.
And 5 minutes of spring. We went from freezing cold to 80-something degrees, but yeah, I mean, it's, yeah. You know, and every few years you might get some snow, which people do not know how to drive in snow here. Or walk, for that matter, in the snow or ice. Because we don't know what to do with it, you know, so, yeah. Don't ever come when it snows.
Nobody comes where we are when it snows either, so
I think we're about to be
I think
completely
they caught us
drowned.
for us.
Completely drowned out by the whole band now. So, do you guys have any questions? Thanks, Mike.
I don't think so.
Monica, do you have any?
Always counting on me for questions now? Or-
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've asked everybody, but
Tell you I'm not that exciting.
we just want to hear people's stories. We're not looking for excitement. We're looking for perspective.
Yeah.
If excitement comes, we'll take it.
I tell you, my boss would have been fun to interview. He would have been really cool. How long are y'all here for?
Until Tuesday.
We leave
So
Tuesday
basically
morning.
tomorrow's our last
Yeah, tomorrow morning's kind of our last thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually had a question.
Okay.
So a lot of people have been telling us that Katrina has really aged them, or has cut their lives a bit shorter. I mean, do you feel that way? Even though you've come back and you said that the music and the food and stuff reinvigorates you and things like that. Do you feel that way at all?
Personally, no. I don't think it's aged me. No, not me personally.
And why is that?
I don't know. You know, it's life. You know, what happened here with Katrina is life. You know, stuff happens, and you just pick yourself up and keep on going. Even when you lose everything, you just lost stuff. You know, you didn't lose your life. I didn't lose my life. You know, my family was broken up, but I still had them. I think that I know it did my mother in. I think she might even still be here if it wasn't for Katrina. But personally, no. I mean, I came back. I came back okay.